You thought you got a rent eviction moratorium over the weekend, but did you really? Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Afternoons LA. Hope you're good and safe. Thank you for joining me. This is our 2-hour programming block that starts every day at 3:30. Starts with a check, then goes to hazard pay, then FPUC, and this video, rent assistance. Big exciting news this morning, and wow, I did not see it coming, in which Steve Mnuchin confirmed all the details of this channel and its reporting exclusively over the last 2 weeks, especially as to rent assistance, rent grants, eviction moratoriums, mortgage forbearance, and all that wonderful stuff. He confirmed it in detail in an interview with CNBC. It comes less than 2 days after an executive order was issued that caused a lot of confusion about whether or not there's an eviction moratorium in place now or whether there isn't. Let me get right to that first before I get to Steve Mnuchin's remarks. On Friday, the president at his golf tournament, at his golf club in New Jersey, told news that he was going to issue an executive order that would provide an eviction moratorium. He used those exact words, an eviction moratorium. What is an eviction moratorium? An eviction moratorium is an order that says you cannot evict people. So if you're a tenant, you cannot be thrown on the street. It's a fancy word for saying not be thrown on the street. Eviction moratoriums cover tenants, and so it includes things like retail tenants, apartment tenants, things like that. He did not mention in the press conference mortgage forbearance. What is mortgage forbearance? Mortgage forbearance means that you don't have to pay your mortgage and that the bank cannot foreclose against you because you can't make your mortgage. It protects people who live in their home and have a mortgage, or people who own an apartment building can't make their mortgage, or people who own a commercial building can't make their mortgage. So we had really great news on Friday. And then Saturday, we had even more exciting bombshell, celebratory, incredible news when the president had another press conference and said, I'm issuing the executive order. Here it is. It's mortgage forbearance and a rent eviction moratorium. And that's what he called it. You open the order, as I did, and you read the executive order, and it says that that's what it is in the title. But then you get to the middle of it. It's like getting to the middle of a Hershey's Tootsie Roll, and there's no thing in there. It's like ordering a chicken McNugget. You buy it in, and it's just skin on the outside, and there's no chicken. It's like, where's my chicken? There was nothing in there. Now, it required a pause and a thought. And, when I read it first, I thought, am I reading something wrong? Am I losing my brain? Am I going to the Mitch McConnell School of Memory? What's going on here? And when you read it, then you realize there's nothing there. In the hours that passed, news reporters started to realize the same. The executive orders issued on Saturday, to be very simple, are not eviction moratoriums, even though the president called them. They literally don't do anything. They literally are a hot air of nothingness. Now, don't go into the comments and say I'm being political. Don't say I'm saying something bad about the president. I'm saying nothing bad about the president. I'm saying his executive order is a bunch of bollocks. It's nothing. It's nothing. Why call it an eviction moratorium when it's not an eviction moratorium? It's not an eviction moratorium. It's called a review document. In the document, it says that if you have problems making your rent, the Department of HUD, overseen by Dr. Ben Carson, the heart surgeon who ran against the president and then got the job at HUD, will review your concern. So basically, if you can't make rent and you're being thrown on the street, after you're thrown on the street, you can call Ben Carson and say, hey, Ben, I have a problem. Oh, you have a problem making my rent? Okay, I'll take a look at it. That's all it says. He will take a look at your problem. It also says Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, look at your problem. It's great that people are going to look at your problem. Where's the eviction moratorium? That's what I'm looking for. It's not in there. So by Monday morning, and I'm not saying it's just liberal news media. I'm saying every news media was trashing this document because it's not an eviction moratorium. So for Steve Mnuchin and Larry Kudlow and all those wonderful people to appear on Sunday morning news and say there was an eviction moratorium executive order, it was not. And it did not matter whether you were Republican or Democrat, it's not an eviction moratorium. So then came this, the really, really great news. This was the great news. Ignore the executive order. Steve Mnuchin on Sunday, on this morning on CNBC, the financial channel, confirmed that he and Nancy Pelosi had an agreement on eviction moratorium, had an agreement on a mortgage forbearance, had an agreement on rent, a free grant rent program. Yes, they had an agreement. We didn't even need an executive order. So why did they not just do it? Because the problem is that the rent, tenant, eviction, mortgage, all that type of stuff in the second stimulus package was part of a very big second stimulus package that was held up because of one thing that had nothing to do with rent. A $1 trillion bailout of states like the state of New York. Yeah. So as you sit here and you're facing eviction or you're being thrown on the street, or you have been thrown on the street, your livelihood was being held ransom by a bailout to cushy states. Don't you love federal government? Don't you love the government? Boy, I've detailed it a lot since morning's LALATE this morning, which was the most watched morning show we've ever done. Thank you for tuning in, and the other videos this afternoon, but I'll just tell you generally what happened. States who had gotten a lot of money during the first financial problem of the pandemic, during the first stimulus package, applied to the federal government, states, counties, and cities actually, and said, hey, we need a bailout. We need money. We can't make budget. And we're going to use that money for our citizens. We're going to use that money for our citizens to pay their payroll, and we're going to keep them on the job. The federal government said, sure, here you go. Here's the money. Go do it. In a sort of a moment like Jovita and her scars at SBA, the federal government sort of gave them money but didn't say how it's to be given the money. So the states got the money, and guess what they did? They fired everyone. They fired people, let them lay them off, caused them to go to early retirement, didn't pay them the money. And guess what? How about that money for rent and grant systems programs? Well, guess who did a video all last week about that, being very critical to one governor about how dare you do a grant rent program for your state now in July, almost August, starting in July and August, when you've had that money since May. Guess who he is? Andrew Cuomo. And he was specifically the target of Steve Mnuchin this morning on CNBC. He said that they should have had a financial control board. They were given money, they did not use the money, and we're not going to keep on throwing money at them. I know exactly how much money they have. I have data from the states. The states have more money from the last time. I gave them flexibility of how to use the money. And that flexibility includes rent and grant programs. Los Angeles had a rent program that launched recently. It's all gone. It's all gone. So Los Angeles is back asking for more money again. Well, why do you need a grant program? Okay, this is the part where you get your popcorn, you're like, and you get your tea, and you're like, okay, get ready for this one. Why are counties and states asking for rent grant programs when the rest of the bill, the second stimulus package, has a rent grant program for citizens? Yeah. So these cities, counties, and states thought that they could apply to the federal government for more money the second stimulus check round again, and say they're going to use it for hazard pay, say they're going to use it for their employees, say they're going to use it for grant programs. But there already is a hazard pay part of the bill. It's not for you. And there already is a dedicated part of this bill for rent, grant money, eviction moratorium. So why are you coming asking for you to get the money and then you set it out? Do you smell it? I smell it. It doesn't smell good. It doesn't smell like Christian Dior or Dracar Noir or whatever you will, is where it smells like crap. And that's what happened. And so what's ironic in this entire environment, as I do my Larry Kudlow hands and the glasses, what's incredible in this entire environment is that I had always worried whether this grant rent program that was proposed in the second stimulus was a little too rich. It was a lot too money. Perhaps the Republicans wouldn't agree to it. Maybe it was just a little too much. They did agree to it. maybe watered down, but they did agree to it. They agreed to an eviction moratorium. They agreed to a mortgage forbearance. They agreed to ensure you're not thrown out of your home. But they couldn't get it done because there's this big friggin' ass bailout of states that doesn't belong in there. And ultimately, the message is now very confused in a way that doesn't help you. The reason why it doesn't help you is that you're sitting back and you're seeing, if you are up to date enough, which a lot of people aren't, because if you can't make rent and you can't make your mortgage, you generally don't have electricity, or you generally don't have Wi-Fi, you generally don't have a $5,000 computer, you generally don't have these wonderful things that you could keep up to date with news and be watching every single executive order and downloading the PDF and reading through it with a $3 pen. You generally just don't do that. So you are at the mercy of whatever information that is spawned to you, and maybe a friend tells you and you hear it. So it doesn't really help that since last Sunday, Americans are told there's an eviction moratorium when there's not. It doesn't really help that these parties involved, Steve and Nancy, both Republicans and Democrats, are claiming they're giving you an eviction moratorium, and they haven't. It doesn't really help that they talk about saving the children and keeping people alive and keeping the food on the table when they're not really doing it. They're trying to bail out states. It doesn't really help when Mark Meadows, who's the chief of staff to the president, is not coming to the negotiation table. And ultimately, that's what's happened. And the great refreshing thing about this is other people are finally waking up to it. When Steve Mnuchin was on CNBC this morning with David Faber, who I greatly admire, and Jim Cramer, who I've been watching my entire life, and was being interviewed, they didn't give him cushy questions. They did not give him cushy questions. They said, you know what? Why is there so much bickering going on? Why are you trash talking each other all the time? You know, why just throw more money out there? What's the big deal? Of course, that question was asked at an inopportune time. It was when talking about the state bailouts, and Mnuchin said, well, that's an insane amount of money. Well, the rent assistance was not an insane amount of money. The eviction was not an insane amount of money. And what he said was that the parties, him and Nancy, went line item and split things on everything they agreed upon. They agreed upon your rent. So where are we going from here? When are you going to see your eviction moratorium? When are you going to see your grant money? When are you going to see your mortgage forbearance? I am going on the street, Ally, like, when am I going to see this relief? The good news is you'll likely see this relief in the next, I'd say 7 to 10 days. It's going to take 2-something days for these people to go to federal court to fight over the executive order, which is unlawful as to FPUC. Once that happens, they're going to come back to the negotiation table. Nancy already said on Sunday they're going to negotiate again. Steve was asked the question, he refused to answer. Who cares what you want to do, Steve? You are coming back to the negotiating table once the executive orders are invalidated. Once they come to that table and they get rid of the bailout, this big bailout to states, they have a deal. They have a deal. And the deal is your rent, your eviction, and that's the great news. That's the great news. And so it only takes Nancy and Steve to come into that room, make the deal come out. Then you have to add 2 days for the Senate to approve it by law, because the Senate, some of them may have gone home. They have to be brought back to Washington, D.C. They have to sit down and vote on it. But it takes no more than 2 days. No more than 1 day for the president to sign it into law. That's 3 days. The minute he signs it, you finally have a real eviction moratorium. 3 days. So, you know, if Steve and Nancy got in the room tomorrow, add 3 days to that. Yeah. I mean, no, excuse me. Steve and Nancy got in the room tomorrow and made a deal, add 3 days to that. If Steve and Nancy got in the room, you know, tomorrow and had to do 2 more days negotiation and get it done, add 3 days from that. It's not that far. It's not today. It's not tomorrow, but it's literally in the next approximately 10 days. Wow. A lot to endure, and I understand. It really is a lot to endure. I appreciate your support, and last night of having my comedy moment with the glasses and the hands and the, you know, there are 400 days in the year, and I'm sure you enjoyed that as well. And it was fun for me, and I'm glad it kept you motivated, because that is the spirit of this channel, to keep you motivated. It's also to keep you informed. So go to the front of this channel and hit that subscribe button and that alert button, because I want you to be up to date. I want you to know when something hits. I want you to know when eviction moratorium is issued, because it's a hot mess. There's very bad reporting out there. I've been detailing it all day long. There's very bad reporting out there about stimulus check amounts and FPUC amounts and how things work, and it's just really, really bad, and I'm sorry. Stay with me. Stay with me. I mean, you can listen to other people and whatever you else want to listen, but stay with me because I'm giving you the correct information. I don't do incorrect information. I do correct information. The worst you can say is I don't button my shirt right, or I wear the same shirt color too many days in a row, and I can deal with that. But you're never going to say I have wrong information because I won't. I won't. Coming up next is Evenings LALATE. As always, stay motivated, stay inspired, stay focused. Hit that alert and subscribe button on the front of this channel, and stay smiling. It's a hard thing to endure. I'm here with you. We're here together, and stay with LA for more.